Hey guys, thanks for joining me here today. It is one of those days I think we all need something else to think about, and editing is the perfect thing. So, hello, and I want to say special hello to Gary and Debbie and Robert and Tim and all of you who have joined me here today. This is a follow up to my last video, which was this past weekend, where I went out and I took images for a composite. So I was at the beach and I wanted to get an image of the beach where the sky was streaking, the clouds were moving, but I wanted to capture the waves more still on the bottom. So today is going to be a live edit. So I haven't done I've already edited these and you saw the results on my last video. But these results may be a little different because I'm just going to go through it and do a natural edit. I haven't done a pre sort of like tutorial for this to look just really polished. This is going to be just me actually editing here and sharing with you the actual steps that I end up going through when I edit. And I want to say hey to Miss Jenkins and to Kim and Yen. It's so awesome to have you here. All right, so first I always import my images into Lightroom. So let's head over there and see what we have. All right, so hang on a second. Let me just put this so that you can still see me. 1 second here. So these are the two images that, there, can you see me? I don't want to cut off stuff. All right, I'll make myself even smaller. All right, so these are the two images that I have pulled into Lightroom. So I have, this is the first image that I took. And hi, Scott. And this is the second image that I took. Okay, so this one was the long exposure. And you can see the clouds are streaking and the water looks very smooth and still. And that's because it was I think a 30 or 45 second exposure. In fact, I can check it out here. Let's see. 30 seconds, f19, ISO 50, 16 millimeters. And the other image was 1/20th of a second, f9.5, and ISO 50. So again, 16 millimeters. So what I'm going to do is I would like to get the bottom of this image here with the top of this image here and put them together. I also like the bottom right corner of this long exposure more than I like the bottom right corner of this one. So I always import my images into Lightroom and I can see a couple things that I need to do right off the bat. Now, I already looked at the second image. If you want to see, I had to straighten it because I had, let's see, that's how it was when I took it. And that's not going to blend together too well with that image. So I did already straighten it, and let me just put it back. Okay. Forgive me about that. All right. If you have questions as I go, hi Bev. If you have questions as I go, please let me know. All right, so the first thing I did was just straighten the horizon of the second image to match the first one. And luckily they are both still lining up pretty well. Now, you can already see that I have one issue that I'm going to come up with against, and that is that my 7-stop neutral density filter has given me a bit of a color cast on this image. So the first one is blue and a lot more natural looking, and the second one is a little bit more purple. It seems kind of purple to me, and a little bit darker. The darker is not a problem, but When I put these two images together, I'm going to have to make sure to do some color work on it to make it work. Hi, David. It's so great to have you here. All right. So the first thing that I do down here at the bottom, this is called my film strip, and you can see I have both images there. I'm going to select both together, right click, and then I'm going to go to edit in and open as layers in Photoshop. I could do initial edits in Lightroom, but I'm not going to. I'm going to do it all in Photoshop. All right, still loading, but we have the two images coming into Photoshop. Okay, so to be able to blend images, you need to know a little bit about masking and layers, okay? And I'm going to be using masking and layers, and I know it may be a little confusing if you haven't used them before, but as I said, ask me questions. Also, I am planning to follow up at some point with a video that explains masking and layers, because I have ideas, really great ways to explain it to make it really understandable. So on the right hand side of Photoshop here, I have two layers. Each image that I took is on a different layer. So this first one, the top layer that you see here is composite 43, and that is, they're both visible. See the eyeballs here. And if I turn off the top layer, you can see the bottom layer, which is composite 50. So the first thing that I need to do is I need to select both layers, and I can hold down the command button. On Windows, it's probably control, and select both of them. And then I'm going to go to Edit, Auto Align Layers. Because even if you have two images, and I'm just going to choose Projection Auto and click on OK. And hi, Glass Photography. Even if you have two images that look like they line up, quite often there is just that little micro difference in the way that they are sitting. And so always auto align your layers to begin with, and that will just line everything up so that the work that you're doing, you won't end up with strange looking areas or areas where you realize that, oh wait, these images are not one on top of another. So Photoshop has done that for me, and you will see after you auto align quite often, you will see that there are some areas around the outside that need to be either filled in or cropped to get rid of, and that's fine. I'm going to leave it for now and then do that at the end. So how do I get these two images together? Well, this is kind of a simple image to work with because there's a bottom half and a top half. They're pretty separate, and the horizon is very, very obvious. So I have a line to work with to separate the two. Now I am going to have to do just a little bit of work on the post, because the post is in both the bottom and the top, and so I may have to decide which to have. And I can see already that I'm going to use the post from the bottom going into the top, because it'll be much easier to keep that bottom part with the wave coming around it. So yeah, enough talk. Let's kind of work on it. Now, first of all, I do have top layer selected. That's fine. The first thing I'm going to do is, again, make sure that the image is straight. So I'm going to click on the crop tool over on the left. I'm going to click on the top here, the straighten tool, and it allows you to straighten the image by drawing a line on it. I love this tool. It's awesome. All right, so I've clicked it. I'm just going to draw a line from the left to the right, and you can see that actually does need a bit of straightening. And there we go. It's is it minus 0.4 is what it did, and I clicked the check mark at the top, and it straightens both layers at the same time for me. And actually, straightening it has gotten rid of a lot of the outside areas that I would need to have cropped out anyway. So that's great. Next, what I want to do is, as I said, I keep looking over here to check check the chat, see if there's any questions. As I said, I want to have the sky from the bottom layer. Oh, look, yeah, there's some of the, there's some there that I will need to crop out. That's okay. So I need the sky from the bottom layer and the bottom from the top. Now, masking, okay? What I want to do is I want to create a mask on the top layer. And I do that by clicking on this, it looks like a rectangle with a black circle in the middle, and it says add layer mask. So I'm going to click on that. The way this works is this white square on the layers panel that is right beside the little, or black, it would mean that it's see-through and you would be seeing what's underneath, okay? That's the part where I said it might get a little confusing, so I'm not going to spend a lot of time on that, but I will follow up a little bit later with some masking and layers information. So I've added a layer mask, and right now it's all white, and that is fine. I have a nice straight horizon here, and I want to make it so that the top half of my layer mask is white, and then the bottom is black, and that will allow, sorry, the opposite, because I want the bottom of this layer to show through, so or to be showing. So I want the top half to be black and the bottom half to be white. The easiest way to do that when you have an image like this is to choose the gradient tool. So I could take the brush and start brushing over areas that I want to be visible or to disappear, but instead I'm going to use the gradient tool. Okay, so I'm going to click on it, and then what I can do is I am going to just put my cursor just below the sky here, and I'm going to hold down the shift key to make sure that it's straight, and I'm going to drag up a little bit into the sky, okay? And whoops, that was opposite. I'm going to go down. So I'm going to drag from the sky down to the water, okay? So what has happened here? So this is a live edit, so you're going to see sometimes I might make mistakes, but I'll explain what I've done. What I did there was I dragged from the wrong direction with the gradient tool, but that's okay. That's really easy. Just Command Z or Control Z, undo, and go the other way. So what has happened here, if you look at the layer mask on the right hand side, you'll see now that I have the top is black and the bottom is white. And what you're seeing is where it's black, that means that this image on the top layer, the blue image, I'll call it the blue and the purple image. The blue image, you're not seeing the top part of that blue image because the black is 100% in that area. You are seeing the sky from the image below because it's showing through. Okay, now you're also seeing the top of the post from the bottom image because it's just a straight mask. And we don't want that because the top of the post, if I were to zoom in and show you, the top of the post is actually now, it looks browner and it's darker than the rest of it. So I need to mask that one separately. To select just the post, I am going to use the quick selection tool on the left, okay? And because this post is such a huge contrast to the lighter areas behind it, the quick selection tool is going to select it very, very quickly. So I just click on that, make sure that my options here at the top are either on new mask or plus, and then I drag over the post and voila, it's selected. Now, what do I want to do with the selection? So I'm looking again at the layer mask over on the right hand side. The blue image is showing all on the bottom. I want the blue image to go up the post as well, so that it's the blue image post that's coming up. Because I have this area selected, I can now add white with my paintbrush to this layer mask. I make sure that the layer mask is selected by clicking on it. You can see it has a little white box around it. And I'm going to go to the paintbrush, so the brush tool, and I'm going to increase the size. It's on 60 right now. It can be a lot bigger than that. Let's keep going to whatever, 500, 1760 can be really big. See how the circle is really big? Because it's selected, this paintbrush is only going to paint where it's selected. Now, right now my paintbrush is on black. I don't want that. I want it on white. So I'm going to paint over this just like that. And voila, you can see that in the layer mask over here, I now have the white bit going up, and you can see on the image that I have sky and the water separated the way that I want to. Now I'm going to click on Command D to deselect everything, and that looks pretty good. And I like masking it like this, because if I were not to mask it but just use the paintbrush and go over it, if the paintbrush has a feather, which you need to make it look more natural, what's going to happen is you're going to get some of it spill out onto the sky and around it, and that will make it look unnatural, because it won't look proper. Okay, it'll be the lighting will have spilled over, and it will look unnatural. The other thing I said I might like to do is this bottom right corner, bring some of the long exposure image below. See how it's much smoother down there? I might like to try to use that in that corner instead of the blue image photo. So I'm already on the paintbrush, and this time I'm going to use black, because what I'm going to do, black will let the lower image shine through. I'm going to paint some black in this lower right corner. I still have my layer mask selected, and I'm going to paint some black there. I do have my opacities at 100%, which means wherever I paint, it's going to come through 100%. Let's try it and see how it looks. Sometimes this is where it gets, you have to use your artist brush and see how does it look. Is it looking natural? What can I do to make it really fit? Okay, so let's do this. So I'm painting over it, and you can see that it looks pretty neat. So I have the brush that I'm using is the soft round brush, and the hardness is at 0, so it has a maximum feather on it, and I have to be careful as I'm brushing over that I don't delete unwanted areas, because the circle isn't just a solid circle, it has a feather on it. But that's okay, because I think what I want to do, so see now how the sand is a different color here than it is over here. I might brush over this way a little bit, just to make it blend in a bit more. I don't want to completely get rid of the reflection of the post, so I haven't completely gone in there. I think this looks natural enough. I like it. What do you think? All right, so I'm gonna just check the comments here, see if you have any questions. Not yet. Awesome. Miss Jenkins says it makes sense. That's awesome. Okay, so then what I'm going to do now is I'm going to crop the image, and I'm going to deal with the color and the lighting. Okay, but the actual blending of this image is complete. It's done. It was that easy. So I have put 2 images together using a layer mask. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to crop the image. So I'm going to click on my crop tool, and I'm just going to bring it in to where I want it. And there we go. There's a little bit on the sides, so I'm going to bring that in as well. And actually, I might bring this left side in a bit more because I want my post, I want it to be in the middle. So that's just my personal preference for this image. Okay, so I've done the cropping, and yeah, it's that part is done. Now there's a couple other things I can see that I need to do. So I mentioned the color. I'm not going to do that quite yet. First thing, I can see that I have had spots on my lens here, and I'm going to get rid of those because they'll drive me nuts. If I blow this image up, you're going to see them. So I'm going to use the spot healing brush tool. So I'm going to click on that, make it active. And then I'm going to zoom in on my image to 100%. You can see that at the bottom left, it's 100%. And it's mostly the sky I need to deal with. So then you can see here these spots and how yucky they look. So first of all, notice how I clicked and nothing happened. That's because I'm still have the blue image selected. What I'm going to do here is I'm going to select both layers, and I'm going to click on Command J. And what that does is it duplicates both of my layers, because I want to have, in case I've messed up something from this point forward, I want to have those layers still there so that I can go back at any point in time. But I'm going to take the two bottom layers now, and I'm going to turn them off, meaning I'm going to make them not visible. They're still there, but they're not visible. And the top two layers, I'm going to Command click to select both layers, and I'm going to right click, and then I'm going to click on Merge Layers. And now this is just one image, okay? So instead of it being two images with a layer mask, that is now one image on one layer. So the two bottom layers are still there, but they're just for backup for me. This is a way to keep your editing non-destructive, meaning you can go backwards. So now that I have one image and one layer that I'm working on, and it's selected, and I can go back with my, I'll highlight it again for you, Spot Healing Brush tool. And now I can click on these spots and get rid of them because I don't like them. I think it was spray from the waves as they were coming in. It couldn't possibly be that I didn't clean my lens. So I have some major black ones there. I also have this big white one. Sometimes those blend nicely, sometimes they don't. That's good enough. And okay, so I'm just gonna get the major stuff so you can see that I've done that. And then voila. So now the spots are cleaned up and I have this image to work with on one layer. Okay, the lighting I want to change a little bit, and the color is off a little bit. So what am I going to do? There's a couple things I could do. One, I could convert this to black and white, and I did do that for one of the images. If you saw my last video, you saw the black and white. I like it in black and white a lot, but I'm just going to talk a little bit about color here. And then I also want to maybe lighten up some areas of the foreground and so on. So the way that we masked the blue image on top of the purple image, we can also do with adjustments. And so I'm going to make an adjustment layer, and there's so many different ways to approach this. It's okay to approach things in a different manner. Photoshop is like that. I'm going to start by trying the color balance, okay? And what I want is actually to adjust the color balance of just the top and, well, just the purple layer, actually. So see this mask that I have down below that was on the blue image here? It's already masked. It's already masked out those two areas, the two separate areas. And so I'm going to click on this mask. I'm going to right click and I'm going to click on add mask to selection. Okay. So now on my image, you can see I have marching ants on it and these areas are selected. Okay. I could have done this first. It might have been a little bit simpler to follow, but let's just pretend I haven't already clicked on color balance. Okay. So I go on here and I add mask to selection, and now I'm going to choose an adjustment layer, and I'm going to go to color balance. And when I click on it, you'll see that that mask is automatically applied to the color balance. But right now it's applied to the blue area. You can see that that's the white highlighted there. It's the blue area that if I click on color balance down here, you can see in this box here, there are sliders from cyan to red, magenta to green, yellow to blue. I don't want to change the blue layer. I want to change the purple layer because I think the blue already looks nice and natural. So I need to invert this mask. And so I'm going to right click on it. Sorry, I'm not. I'm just going to click on it. I'm going to click on it, and right below in the properties box, it comes up with the layer mask properties, and I'm going to click on invert. And now you just see that up here, the mask has been inverted. So the white areas are now talking to the purple parts of the image. So now I'm going to click back on this little circle that gives me the properties for the color balance. And I think I need the sky and the, somebody asked me, will this video be available later on? And yes, it will definitely be available later on, as long as YouTube doesn't mess up like they did on my one live stream. But that's a rare sort of one-off type of occurrence, we hope. So I'm going to go from the on this slider a little bit in the cyan direction. Oh, and you can see that already makes it so much better. Look at that, just a -11, and it already matches so much better. I could play around with all of these, see if I wanted to get a little bit more green or magenta. A little bit more yellow might actually make it more of a match. And that's it. There's my color. It's all kind of one now. I don't like this color, but it matches. So now that it matches, I can make global adjustments to this image to make it what I want. So yeah, let's see what I can do. I'm just going to head over to the comments here for a second. All right. Does the same concept work if you have different types of horizons that don't match? Debbie asks. Debbie, if you could just include for me a little bit more information about, oh, hang on a second, guys. I need to reset my camera. We've been on for half an hour. It always does that. All right, Debbie, include a little more information about what you mean. So the concept of masking, let me make it so you can see me. The concept of masking and just painting over where you want one layer to show through and one layer to be on top and the next and the next, yes, will apply to any image, and you just have to kind of figure out for yourself where you want images to show through. And this is it works for, say, if you're making a composite image that is going to be a fantasy image, and that is one of the greatest things you can do with masking and layers. It's just, it gives you so much control and so much creative power. You can put together images that don't match at all. So I'm not sure if this answered your question. If it didn't, just put a little bit more detail there and I'll try to answer it for you, Debbie. It's an awesome question. Let's see. Okay, I don't think we have any other questions at this moment. So I'm going to head back and show you what I might do next. All right, so what I might do next. Now, it's always preferable to keep layers in a non-destructive manner so that you can always go back. Sometimes though, I don't bother if I know that there's a change that I've made that I'm not going to unchange. See down here in this right hand corner, the sand and the pebbles were looking kind of warm with that purple image showing through. And now that I've adjusted the color balance on it, they look blue and gray. Now they do match the image, but for myself, my own preference, I don't really want it to be that way. I kind of liked that warm tone just a little bit anyway. And so I'm going to go back over this little mask in that area. I'm going to click on the brush tool and get it to pop up so you can see it, the brush tool, and I'm going to I'm going to go back over it with black. So I need to click on this layer mask, the color balance layer mask, and I actually only want 50% there to be, so I'm going to change my opacity here to about 50%, okay? And now I'm going to add black to it so that the color balance change was only 50% showing through. At least I'm going to try it and see if I like it. So I'm painting over it, and there we go. I do like that better. And every time you brush over it, another 50% will go. So you can easily get back to 100 if you do that. I might click there to be a little bit warmer. No, I'm going to undo that. Okay. So you can play with your opacity and have layers only be applied in percentages of the effect instead of full on. So I've done that to the corner here. I think it looks a little more natural. The sand wasn't blue, it was more of a sandy color. And so that's great. Now, I have my composite 43 image, and I can take this layer and duplicate it, and that is a Command J. And this color balance layer, I'm actually going to merge it down onto that layer that I just showed. So now you can see that my top layer, the composite copy 2, is the one that has the color balance in there. So I can actually rename this so I know what I've done. This layer has color balance and this one does not. So if I turn the layer off, you can see the purple now. If I turn it back on, you can see the change that I made. Off, on. Okay, so now I have the color balance layer, and I'm going to duplicate it again because I want to make a change. And hi, Jim. It's great to see you. And I'm going to add a Camera Raw filter to this. I love Camera Raw. Camera Raw is a fantastic way to edit your images. I can easily do things through all adjustment layers, and that's fine. That's one way to do it. But I like Camera Raw, so I'm going to show you me using Camera Raw. So I like the highlights in this image. I'm going to pull them up because it shows off the movement of the water around the post. It brings the foamy white up a little bit. So I've increased my highlights. What else? I like contrast. I might add some dehaze. The dehaze looks really neat. And this is where you just get to play around and be really creative. There is a brush tool here as well, so you can do selective things. And yeah, I'm going to head over to the little effects tab, which is over here, and I'm going to see what a vignette looks like. Aha, I like the vignette. I'm going to make it just like that. I like to feather my vignettes so they don't look really, really strong. And I'm going to allow the highlights to show through, and maybe the midpoint not so mid. So that's great. Click OK. And you can see I've darkened the image. I've made it a little bit more moody. I am going to, what I want to do is I want to lighten up a few areas of this image. Just going to check your questions. I think I might see a question here. Oh, someone asked, I have a 10-stop ND. What other stop ND would you suggest? I love the 10-stop. This one that I used was a 7-stop ND. Basically, if I had tons and tons of money, I would have all sorts of ND filters. So yeah, like a 3-stop, a 10-stop, at least to get like more of a range in neutral density filters. It's a great addition to your kit. All right. Hi, Sandy. It's so good to see you. All right. I'm going to just kind of finish off this edit. I would like to brighten up some areas of the image. So I'm going to add a brightness contrast layer. And I'm going to pull up the brightness and lower the contrast, because I think for the post, I would like it to be not as dark. It's like some of the details being lost. But now, of course, the brightness and contrast for the whole image is messed up. So if I click on this layer mask thumbnail, which is what it's called, and do what I did before, I'm going to click invert. So now I have a black layer mask on the brightness contrast, and I'm going to paint white on the areas that I want the brightness contrast to be applied. So first, for this post, because of what I said, if you just brush over it, you're going to mess up the corners. And I'll show you what I mean. And I'm going to have it 100% opacity. If I take this brush and I brush over the post has gotten brighter, but you can see the areas around the post have also gotten brighter, and that looks unnatural because it shouldn't be glowing. So I'm going to undo that, and I'm going to go back to my quick selection tool. I'm going to select that post again, and I said before, because it's such a huge contrast, it selects it very easily. Go back to my brush tool with my white paintbrush, and now I can paint it on really easily. Okay, and then I can Command D, deselect it, and I wanted to add a little bit here. Now here it doesn't matter so much if it's like a perfect mask, so I'm just going to brush over where I want, and I kind of just like that. Maybe even a little in the foreground. I like lightening up foregrounds a little bit because it just, I don't know, it adds depth to a scene. And I'm going to add a little bit over here because I like the white and it brightens it up. And so there, I've played with the lighting. Now, the last thing that I want to do is I want to make it black and white. I'm going to add a black and white layer. And it's already fantastic. I love it. I might bring the blues down. So these sliders are whatever the original color was, you can change how bright they are in your black and white. So the blues, if I pull them down, cyans, if I pull them down, you have to play around and see. Sometimes it seems like a certain color may not have been there, but actually it was. So I leave it like that, and almost done here. I'm going to take this and I'm going to do a curves layer. I love curves. So curves allow me to play with the tones in the image. And you have this diagonal line. The bottom part, you have a little white slider here and a black slider here. If I bring the black slider to the left, all of the blacks in the image get darker. If I bring the white slider in to the left, all the whites get whiter. So I kind of like that. The blacks are too black now. I'm going to make it like that, but you can also adjust areas along the line so that you can really adjust how you want it to look. So yeah, play around with that for a bit. I like the more dramatic look. I'm going to leave it like that. One last thing, see this stump in the foreground here? It's like completely black now. So I'm going to paint over this layer mask thumbnail again with my brush tool, and I'm going to reduce the effect on that specific area. So I've got it selected. I'm going to go to black because black makes things not show. And I'm not going to do it 100%. I'm going to start with 50%, 51. And I'm just going to paint here and see how it's, nope, 50 is not enough. I'm going to go to 100%. If I paint on it, you can see how that curves layer, if you look at the layer mask thumbnail, that curves layer is now not being applied to this one little section that I've painted over. So that's it. I like it like this. And the last thing that I do, a lot of you have asked me how I make white borders around my images where so I can display them on YouTube videos and so on. What I do is I go to image at the top, canvas size, and I click on this little relative button and I add 20 pixels all around the image, and I click OK. And it uses the background color. Now here, sometimes, I think it depends on what I've got selected and so on, but sometimes it'll make a border that is transparent. It really depends on different things that you have selected. And so then I can put, a solid white behind that, and now I have my white border. But yeah, that is my whole image editing live. So if you have any questions, guys, I'd be happy to answer them. I'm so glad that you joined me. Hang on a second. There, now you can see me. I'm so glad that you joined me. And yeah, I think, like I said, we all need some different things to think about, and editing is great. I love it. It's so much fun. And I'm just going to check the comments here, see if you have any questions. The curves are powerful. Yes. Subvids has said that the curves are powerful. They are so powerful. It's such a great adjustment layer, and I highly recommend that you play around with it, see how it works. And yeah, guys, if you have questions, please leave them in the comments below. Someone is asking what one stop means. So it's just in your photography. If you are holding your camera and say you change your aperture from f5.6 to f6 point whatever the next one is, that's one stop. It's one kind of exposure stop. And a 7-stop neutral density filter will take your exposure down 7 camera stops. It can give a little bit better explanation if you want. Email me, rachel@rachellerch.com. I'd be really happy to answer your question. And oh, you guys are awesome. I'm so glad that you've joined me. And yeah, I'm just really this is great. This is so much fun, and I hope you liked it. And I better close it off now so that YouTube can process this and let it be an actual video. And I hope you guys are doing well. Okay, thanks for joining me. Bye.